to the Chiss Ascendancy podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back to
the Chiss Ascendancy.
Episode 82. We're back at it, and
we made
if
it.
You are a we say that every week. We made it to 82. So if you are a YouTube watcher and you're not just listening, you notice that there's a third character here with us. And if you are not aware of who this is, we are in the presence of Star Wars greatness tonight, guys. This is our very own Star Wars audiobook czar, Mr. Marc Thompson, has joined us tonight. And so we're recording this on May the 2nd, but this is our May the 4th extravaganza. And so, first of all, we want to say, Marc, thank you so much for being on the show with us today.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for having me. This is a huge honor. And for the May the 4th episode, that's amazing. Thank you.
I know. So if you guys are listeners and you didn't know this, or somehow this has gotten through the cracks or whatever, when you're listening to the intro of the podcast and you hear that sweet, sultry voice that says, "Welcome to the Chiss Ascendancy podcast," that is Marc. We reached out to him a good while back, and he was more than happy to send us an intro for the podcast. And actually, the file that he sent has like 3 or 4 versions of each way that he said it, and so it's really cool.
Out.
Oh yeah, I was
splicing them together, and I was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe that I'm handling this." Easily the coolest thing I ever put together.
Well, it's funny because I don't know, Marc, your whole family is Star Wars fans.
Yes, yeah. I'm the biggest one,
right?
But yes, everybody likes it. Yeah,
So would you say that early on in your marriage, your wife was also a big fan, or has she, like, obviously your influence in that sphere has grown, and so she's gotten to experience more and more of Star Wars?
Yeah, no, I think she always says that she's a fan, but she always feels like, compared to me, she feels like she's not. So she was amazing. Like she let me, I had Star Trek and Star Wars music in our wedding, and I was able to
wow.
I think I marched into the opening fanfare to Star Trek, and then my groomsmen marched in to the throne room theme, when they're getting their awards and stuff. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. And I had kind of a sci-fi inspired tuxedo. It wasn't full on uniform.
So at my wedding, and actually Samuel just got married about a month ago, so he's
congrats.
fresh. He's fresh into it. But my wife and I got married 6 years ago, and our wedding toppers were Padme Amidala on her wedding day with the flowers, and Boba Fett.
Wow.
I know that doesn't make sense, but I'm a Boba Fett fan.
That's cool.
So I say all that to say it was funny because my wife's a Star Wars fan by proxy, obviously because of me. And so whenever we got the voiceover stuff, I was like, listen to this. And I was showing her all the different Thrawn voices, and she was like, nice. And I was like, no, you don't understand. Like, this is the creme de la Edgar right here. And so, man, funny, so awesome. So we got a couple of questions, man, you guys, it has been a process to get to this place. But it's kind of cool because in some ways, like, obviously in today's society, streaming services and stuff, you just want to ask a question and get an immediate yes. But working with Marc, he's always been very, very gracious and open to, like, dude, I'd love to be on the show, but we have to get approval from Penguin Random House Audio and then Lucasfilm. So while I'm impatiently waiting, the way that I'm justifying it to myself is someone at Lucasfilm knows that this podcast exists now because of this process.
There you go.
that works for me.
Yeah.
So we've got we've got some questions here that we got, vetted, and they're all good and they're all kosher. But I did want to start, we made sure this was okay beforehand, but we did have a couple of questions from listeners that I wanted to throw your way and kind of get the show rolling. Is that cool?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So this actually has something to do. We have questions that are similar to this, but I'll go ahead and just read these off. Sure. So the first one was, what was your favorite Star Wars audiobook to do?
Ooh, always like asking you to pick your favorite child, you know? It's like, I mean, they're all so much fun, and I really enjoy all of them. Oh man, it's so hard. I think, well, okay. I think, oh, see, I'm having like three answers pop in my head all at the same time. I'll say, like I think Dark Disciple was really special, just because there was something about that story with Asajj Ventress and Quinlan that was just really, I really connected with, and that was like, I feel like that was the first time I remember getting so moved by the scenes that I got like a little bit emotional in the booth.
Wow.
And then I have to like, I think Force Awakens was special to me because I got to record that one several months before the movie came out, and it was kind of like
cool.
like this crazy experience of like, you know, knowing all the plot points of that movie, like, you know, several months beforehand, and having to keep it a secret, and getting locked in a room at Penguin Random House. And so that was just a weird experience and a fun experience because of that. And then like recently, just the you know, all the High Republic books, I really loved. Rising Storm was a lot of fun, and just that, like, that the adventure of that one, and just the like kind of like the character development, and really getting to know Stellan and Elzar deeper in that book. I really enjoy it. Like all the High Republic ones. I'm a huge Jedi fan, so that's a meandering answer. I apologize, but I like them all. And then obviously the Thrawn books. How can I not, you know, love the Thrawn books? You know, like, exactly. Like the, you know, especially the I got to record the 25th anniversary of Heir of the Empire, and that one was a huge. That one was a big deal to me because, like, I always tell this story, but like I was not much of a reader growing up, but the one book I bought on my own was Heir of the Empire because I wanted to find out what happens, you know, after Jedi and all this stuff.
Sick.
But then my teenage laziness got the better of me, and I never finished the book. So then I got hired to do the anniversary reading, and I finally like got to read the book full circle, and it was a big moment. And you know, and Timothy Zahn is just the master. So I mean,
oh my goodness,
you know, any of his stuff is like a huge honor to do. So.
Can I ask a question real quick about the Heir of the Empire trilogy?
Yeah,
You had a particular voice you did for Thrawn early on, and then there was a change when the newer trilogy came out. What was the catalyst for that?
Well, basically, when they announced that he was being brought back into canon, and he appeared first on Star Wars Rebels, and I was listening to, like, I you know, I was just watching Rebels as a fan, and I was watching the episodes, and Lars Mikkelsen has this really interesting accent and cadence, and you know, it was this like kind of like, you know, it was very, very interesting. And I was watching it with my kids, and I was kind of like subtly mimicking it to see if I could do it. And they were like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Nothing." Because at that point I figured, well, you know, I did the Legends ones, so there's no way they're going to want me to do the new ones. And then they asked me to do new ones. I was like, "Oh, cool." So then I decided to try to make it similar to what Lars is doing in Star Wars Rebels, because I figured that's what a lot of people would be being introduced to Thrawn in the canon, or the new canon, for the first time. So I wanted it to try to be as consistent. So I was trying to be a little bit more influenced by what Lars was doing. So
I've always just wondered, because it's like, you know, you grow up on one thing, and then you hear the difference, and you're like, I wonder what it was. You know, I've always wondered.
It's funny because you know, looking and seeing different characters differently over the years, like you know, it's so cool. So I have three boys. I have a 4, a 2, and a 3-month-old.
Whoa, you are in it. That's a rough
I literally called. So at the church I work at, I'm also the director of a small Bible school, and I called one of our girls that I can really rely on, and I was like, "Can the 2 older boys please go to your house? I have an important recording tonight." But it's interesting because whenever you're growing up with certain characters a certain way, it's cool because my sons will always think of Alden Ehrenreich as what young Han Solo looked like versus a young Harrison Ford, in a sense.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally,
or like for me, so I'm 29, and to me, Hayden Christensen showing up at the end of Return of the Jedi, that's what Anakin's Force Ghost looks like.
Oh, wow.
Like, there's no, you know what I'm saying? Like for a lot of people, for you,
Whatever.
probably it's like, oh, it's this other guy.
Yeah,
but
totally.
for me,
Yeah.
you know, it's Hayden Christensen. So
Yeah, that's wild.
but it is interesting. I do like that with how Thrawn is now, and we kind of have some questions about this later from our official list, but I do like that he feels foreign. He feels not from the known galaxy, because the original Thrawn voice and how he was written it was deep and it sounded like a cat's purr. And so actually my first Star Wars audiobook ever was Bloodlines by Karen Travis. That was my first Star Wars audiobook ever. And you did that one as well. And hearing your Boba Fett at the beginning, I remember I was young enough that like I didn't have my own money or anything, and I'm sitting in front of Amazon, and I was like, Mom, I need this. Listen to this guy do Boba Fett. So it's cool that I'm listening. I'm talking to you right now. But
that's so cool.
But Thrawn was the first one that I was like, okay, I'm gonna finally bite the bullet. I was intimidated to read Thrawn because it was all the rage. It was like, this is the most important Star Wars character since the original trilogy. And Thrawn and Timothy Zahn, in a lot of ways, we've talked about this numbers of times on the show, but he's really responsible for the resurgence in a lot of ways of the Star Wars following. So when people are like the guy I work for, he's like, so the Chiss Ascendancy, what is that? And I was like, it's the most important Star Wars item since Return of the Jedi. So a follow-up question from our fans is, what was the most difficult book you had to read? And I guess whether it was, I know whenever I showed my wife to show you who you were on YouTube, was your video of you recording the Hand of Thrawn duology, and you were doing Bringer of Winds and Luke Skywalker back and forth. And it was funny because I was like, babe, this book is like 24 hours long. And it was funny because you then turned to the camera and go, it's a long one.
Right.
So what was the most difficult, I guess, not necessarily like how long it was, but was there a book that stood out as far as the difficulty of performing it, or new characters or something like that?
Oh man. I mean, that would probably be up there. I don't know if I could narrow it down to one particular one. I mean, it's always challenging when there are a ton of different characters and you're trying to kind of, you know, bounce back and forth. I think like so there's certain like Ween Gali in the Ascendancy, the most recent Thrawn books. He could be like, and the scenes between him and the Magus and Thrawn, that was definitely challenging because they're in such different parts of my voice. So having to flip back and forth between them was definitely super challenging. And they're very like guttural and stuff. So that one was kind of the one that was maybe the most recent that was a big challenge. But they all have kind of pros and cons and things that are uniquely challenging, I would say.
Yeah. I would say as a listener, one of the hardest things back and forth is the Ascendancy trilogy is so different. And like, they're so like Zahn was even saying, this is more sci-fi than fantasy.
Yeah.
And it's so like detailed and political, and like the Chiss are like, so here's how it works. You've got like all these families, and then this is your first name, and then this is your middle name, but you'll get that one later. And the third name, like it's so detailed. So I can imagine as a listener,
and then
I'm
you
always
switch it halfway through.
Right.
You know, they'll join this other house and now they have a new name, but you have to remember that it's the, So.
It's crazy because I have to be like, all right, 15 seconds back for Audible.
Right.
So I can only imagine when you're reading it, the confusion that can take place.
Yeah, there were a lot of notes and trying to keep track of everything.
Something I've always wondered as like an audiobook listener, because Josiah and I both have like this shared dream of doing voice acting to some degree.
Oh, cool.
But I listen to audiobooks and I'll sometimes hear like for instance, I don't know how into Harry Potter you are, but the voice actor for that will sometimes like cross over a voice, like he'll be doing like Mr. Weasley and it sounds like Uncle Dursley. And
Oh.
I always wondered, like, if when you're creating these voices, because sometimes like you'll have voices that'll be like similar that you'll just reuse for side characters. Do you
Right.
have like notes, or do you just kind of like off the cuff decide what voice you'll use for what character?
Yeah, like I take a lot of notes, and like my process is I read the book straight through, and then anytime there's a character that has any line of dialogue, I write down everything I can find out about that character. So like their gender, are they human, are they alien, what's their age? Does the author give me any description of their voice? Like, is it like, described as melodious or gravelly or, whatever it is. And then I go back and I try to cast it, and I try to pick voices that I think will match that. And I think there have been challenges sometimes where what appears to be an ancillary character in one book in the next book ends up being like, the best friend or the second lieutenant. And then it's like, oh no, when I created this voice, it now sounds similar to this voice. And how do I differentiate them? And, so
Interesting.
So there are challenges like that pop up, but I try to make them as distinct as possible. And like my director, Kevin Thompson, he's like amazing. And he basically taught me how to narrate audiobooks. But he has this great illustration. He talks about like the instruments in an orchestra and how you want them, to sound different enough, but they it's not enough for them to be different. They have to work well together. Like they have to like all come together so that they make music together. And so a lot of times he'll say, I like this voice, but I think we need to choose this one because it's going to match up better with these other ones. And,
Oh,
and
wow.
we'll kind of discuss about, okay, these guys are going to be talking a lot together. So how can we make them, complement each other and stuff like that. So there's definitely a lot of experimentation that goes into it.
I'm going off road a little bit, but I'm curious as I hear you talk more and more about it. So one of my favorite voices that you do is Marc Thompson.
Oh, cool.
And in Light of the Jedi, there's like almost zero description about him. So when it comes to a character like that, I mean, that's like, I've never heard you use that voice before. And I've listened, I think, like every book you've done. Yeah. So what was your thought process behind Marc Thompson?
So I guess my experience when I was reading the book was that he seemed like this like guy that was not really respected by the other Tempest runners. And, so I felt like there had to be a quality to him that when you first hear it might be underestimated or kind of not intimidated by, and kind of like,
kind of unassuming,
almost like unassuming. That's a great word for it. But then as the book went on, you saw how like brilliant and tactical he was, and how he was kind of a few steps ahead of everybody. So I tried to, come up with the voice that I thought, like, at first you might see, well, who is this guy? And like, almost like, the guy kind of sweeping in the corner, kind of the, like kind of this unassuming guy. But then like, he kind of has that, like, I think there's a, when is it in Light of the Jedi where he ends up cutting off Kostov's hand or something, or, but like, there's like it's like, it's just like, there's obviously this like rage inside of him, and this like potential for that switch to flip. That he could like flip at any moment. So I was trying to kind of play with that, and so I was kind of, those are a lot of the thoughts I was having trying to come up with him. So
it's cool.
Very
because
cool. He's just such a cool character.
Oh yeah. Was it hard to do just like this is like a silly question, but was it hard to do the switch from Marchion Row to Marchion Row?
Yeah, it was a little bit hard.
in my mind, like when I'm reading the comics and stuff, I'm like, there's Marchion. Like he still hasn't switched in my mind.
Right. Yeah. No, I have to like remind myself. Yeah. It was definitely a process. Whenever we record them, we always get a list from Lucasfilm, and like, this is the master pronunciation and this is how we want it pronounced. And so,
oh wow,
there was some breakdown between what the people telling us what to do told us how to pronounce these things versus how the authors were pronouncing it. And then and then there were like, they had the High Republic show, and obviously they were doing a lot of interviews and stuff. So I think for consistency, they said, let's do it how the authors are saying it, and let's make sure. But there was some communication breakdown, because even when you listen to the first publicity video of Marchion, it says Marchion, those little animatics they did.
Oh yeah.
You know, like the very
That's true.
first
I didn't
one,
think
it
about
says
that.
Marcion. Yeah. So like, so there was, you know, I guess there was just debate early on about how they were going to do it. And so, um,
Interesting.
yeah, it was a bit of a gear shift, but I'm glad it'll be consistent moving forward. So
Yeah. It's cool because his character is so like for those people who've read the books but aren't necessarily, because there's levels to Star Wars fans, not in a sense of how like not in their worthiness to love Star Wars,
right,
but just
right.
in the depth, like not everybody wants to read the comics, you
Yeah.
know, and
Yeah.
but there's people who they love the movies and that's all they need, and they really love it, but that's all they need. And then you
Yeah.
have people who, well, I'm not going to watch your cartoon. Okay, I'll try Clone Wars, and then they're hooked, and then they watch Rebels and all that. And then you have the book readers, and I would say the furthest down level, besides like the you know role playing game, is I would say movies and shows and books and comics. That's kind of
Yeah.
like one of the really deep levels.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because if I would have seen the comics first, I wouldn't have pegged Markion for having the voice that he has in the audiobooks.
Yeah.
But because he's so jacked, he's just this giant
Right.
gray dude.
Yeah.
But I think that hearing your voice for him has, and I think made it even better because he's not the typical jock. Like he's not the oh my gosh, what's the Tempest runner with the big horns?
Oh, Pan Eta.
Yeah, he's not the Pan Eta
Yeah.
sounding guy, because Pan sounds like the big jock baseball
Right.
hockey player guy.
Yeah.
But Markion is very to me it's almost like he's so irritated by everybody around him. He's finally just
Yeah.
talking through, it's like almost through clenched teeth. Like
Right.
this morning I'm getting my boys ready for school, and my wife's asleep because she's been awake with the baby the whole night. And my oldest, but he's still only 4, so he's oldest but he's only 4, and he's running in his sandals like flat-footed, and I was like, your mom's asleep. And it was
Right.
had like that marking on quality to it where it was like,
Right.
you wake her up. So that was, I think it's funny because he does have that natural, like, just like you said, like the anger that's welling up from the mistreatment from his parents, and reading the Markion 2-part story, like their whole people as a species has this troubled past.
Right.
So all that to say, I think you nailed it, because he doesn't
thank
have the
you.
typical, like, I'm just going to beat you up kind of guy. Like you
Right.
can tell he's a thinker. And I think he's such a cool hybrid of physically imposing, but he's also like, he's outthought the Jedi so far.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to have to go 150 years back to see where all this is. We don't even, obviously you probably know more than us, but we're not going to see what's happening 150 years ago.
Right.
And then ultimately my guess is they're going to end up back at the end of where the Fallen Star is. And then we're going to see how that plays out to somewhere around the Phantom Menace or something. And so he's outthought the Jedi, and that's all we know for now, you know, till we go back to that timeline. But anyways, we're 20 minutes in. We're going to go ahead and get to the regular. We could do this for 3 hours. So we know that you have other stuff you got to do as well. But okay, so the first question, this is kind of a surface level but important question. What got you into Star Wars?
Oh, wow. I mean, I don't, it's one of those things, like I was born in 75. So like, it's kind of like, I always remember it being there. Like, I think, I guess the most honest answer is probably the action figures, you know, and then like, I wanted to know more about the toys I was playing with. So, I just like, I can't think of a time where it wasn't on TV or, you know, a part of role play, and you know, I had the sheets and the toy, you know, so
I think
we're
literally in my Star Wars room right now.
Oh, nice. That's great. I love it.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir right here.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So basically it was always around, but wanting to dive further into the stuff that was surrounding you, the clothes and everything, you wanted to know more about it. Yeah.
And it's just, you know, those that, you know, the older I get, the more I think about like how formative it was, and like just how it really planted these seeds in me about, you know, this force that you can't see, but it's there. And even though you can't see or touch it, it's there. And this battle for good and evil. And it's just, it really kind of shaped me in a lot of ways, and kind of like helped me understand some spiritual things in my life, by giving me a kind of something that was kind of on my level that helped me understand some of these deeper questions in life. And I'm very grateful to it for that. And George Lucas for that.
Definitely.
So seeing that Jackson character Josiah held up reminded me of the From a Certain Point of View books.
Oh, yeah.
And I have this question that has just been in the back of my mind since I listened to it. And how locked up did your falsetto get narrating the Cluehorn caper?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah, you talk about challenging books. Like, that was definitely.
I was going to say, that's the most challenging one right there.
Right.
Oh
we may have a winner now. Yeah.
Doing your absolute highest register for, I think it was an hour and a half long.
Yeah.
That was okay. I'm a lover of all things Star Wars. You can ask anybody. I am ridiculously positive. But every book that comes out, I'm reading this book. I don't care if it's, I don't necessarily identify as much with this character, but I'm a Star Wars fan. I'm reading this book. But Cluehorn Cantina Caper almost broke my spirit, dude. We had just gotten past. We had just gotten past some amazing Sand Trooper stuff, some amazing the Come Along Boba Fett story, all this crazy stuff.
Right.
It was a freaking hour.
Yeah.
Dude. I was
How many times you go through that water bottle doing that part?
Oh yeah. That was like a 2 or 3 bottle story. Yeah. Therefore, yeah. I mean, I think it's I like the Certain Point of View books because I do
I love them.
Like how crazy they can get, and it's like not every vignette is for everybody, but it is for somebody, and I think some there's different things that I'm a sucker for anything having to do with the Jedi. I know some people are really into the bounty hunters, and some people are into the resistance and the military stuff, and so and then some people are into the aliens and the kookiness and the craziness and just how random things are, so it's fun to kind of explore all those maybe unexplored corners of the galaxy and but it's I know what you mean though.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
it's very Lion King 1.5. I love it.
Right.
Dude, Lion King 1.5 is the best. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. So my next question, man, I could have gone down a Certain Point of View rabbit hole. Hunger being narrated by Sam Witwer about the Wampa from the Empire one. Oh my god. Yeah. Because I'm a huge Sam Witwer fan because Force Unleashed, The Mist, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Then Darth Maul. Then I'm a huge Wampa fan. It's my favorite creature, I would say.
Cool.
So, okay, here we go. Do you have a favorite character and has it changed since narrating?
I'd say my favorite Star Wars character is Yoda, and it hasn't really changed much from narrating. Only deeper appreciation for him, because what I do love about the books is you get into everyone's inner monologue and you get to
that's the difference maker for books.
Yeah. And I didn't realize that growing up. I think now I understand why people like reading. Oh, this is cool, So, but Yoda's has been and always will be probably my all-time favorite for tons of reasons. But yeah.
That's our dad's favorite character, but his reason's a lot more shallow, and it's that he's 5'3".
Oh, really? Is your dad short?
He's really short.
So he relates to that aspect of the character.
Dude, I don't know what happened, but my mom's 5'7". My dad's, he says he's 5'4". It's a straight lie.
5'3".
He's a God-fearing man, but once a day he's lying to somebody in the world about his height. And dude, Samuel's probably 5'10", 5'11".
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm a statistical anomaly, man.
I'm 5'8". I don't know what the heck's going on. Yeah. So
very cool.
Super funny.
What's funny is my mom was before I met your dad, I was dating this guy. I don't remember the guy's name, but he was actually from Spain, and I was oh, that's really cool. And I'm a big basketball fan. And I was that's really cool. And she was yeah, he was 6'4". And I was you mean my dad could have been Pau Gasol? And instead it's my dad, which obviously it wouldn't be me if it wasn't my dad, but
right.
Okay, so did you always want to do audiobooks, or did this type of work happen naturally along the line somewhere?
No, it's very unnatural, and I did not want to do that because you know, like again, like I did not like to read. Like I was the kid who, if I had to do a book report, I rented the movie and got the cliff notes, and you know, because I was just like, it was like 300 pages, 400 pages. That's like torture, you know. So when my agent called and was like, you know, have you ever done an audiobook? I was kind of trying to talk her out of it. I was like, no, not really. And you know, and she was like, well, what about like a Star Wars audiobook? I was like, whoa, hold on. What, you know? And then I really wanted it. So, but it was really scary doing it for the first time, because it's like, you know, it was a lot, like just to, you know, read through the whole thing and then, and prepare it and really, you know, and then I think I got hired because I had an animation background and I could do a lot of the character voices,
Right.
but making the prose make sense and making the prose interesting, Kevin really had to hold my hand through that and kind of coach me through that, because I was so not used to that. And you know, and it was definitely like early on, I was like, okay, this is Star Wars, but this is really intense. Like, I don't know if I can do this. But now that I've done several and you know, now it's actually one of my favorite things I get to do. Like now, because of that whole inner monologue thing, it's like now I've like learned to treat the parts that aren't dialogue as like just as essential as the character lines, and really kind of learn to appreciate how much I'm learning about the characters through their perspective on what's happening. And, you know, so now I like legit love it. But like initially I was trying to get out of it and not wanting to do it.
And I feel like early on you would have been doing more Legends material, so it would have interacted with like original characters. I feel like it probably would have been pretty intimidating to do like a Harrison Ford. Like I'm decent at impressions,
right?
But
like my impression of Han Solo is my impression of your impression of Han Solo. I feel like,
let's be real. He has so
I have
the way that we do
words
impressions. I assume you do, like, you have a line that you go to that you're like, you know, okay, hey, and this is your guy. Samuel, all the time, like, if you fall in love with the show after this and go back and watch other shows, you'll see him do this 75 times over the last 81 episodes. So, Samuel, when are you going to get to do your Han Solo impression again for this?
No, I'm nervous. It's real. I promise you, it's just my impression of your impression, and I only have it from this one time. It was Han talking to Luke, and he goes, "Hey, kid." You know, and that's all I've got. That's the beginning and the end of my whole thing. And I just feel like it would be so intimidating though, because he's just one of those voices that's hard for me to do. No, but you've got to nail him, right?
Yeah. No, it's like, I think it was like when I started those books, I either was not aware or didn't know about how big of a fan base it had. Like I knew obviously people would be fans of Star Wars, but I didn't know how big of a following the audiobooks had. And so I was kind of like blissfully ignorant of, you know, what people thought of them or whatever. And then I kind of like was trying to get to go to Celebration. So I was trying to like angle like, hey, maybe I could go. And, you know, so like I found some reviews and I was like, oh, people are liking this, you know, so. But it was definitely like, I felt a huge responsibility trying to do honor to those legacy characters, you know? So, so it was a lot of like rewatching the films and like recording little sound bites and playing them in my ear and just trying to, and like, and I definitely do what you do. Like I found like a line or two and I got the cadence of it, and, you know, and I would go back to those lines all the time. So,
and I feel like so much of impersonations is not just the voice itself, because obviously it's impossible to do everybody's voice, but if you can get, like you said, the cadence, like if you can get the mood and the attitude of the character down, that's just as important as the voice itself.
Yeah.
Like that's why everybody, like anytime anybody does a Donald Trump impersonation, like they have a whole face, they have the hands,
right? Yeah.
You know, like everybody's got the whole spiel. Awesome. Okay, so here's a fun one. This is something that basically what you get to do for a living, that's like my dream job. Like getting to read Star Wars books for a living is super cool. So I'm curious to know. So being a part of the Star Wars community has created some of my best friendships, people I've met online, Instagram, getting to do stuff like this. If you would have told me 10 years ago, hey, that Boba Fett guy, you're going to do a interview with him, I never would have believed you. So it's given me some amazing opportunities. So for you, what is besides reading the books, what's a once in a lifetime Star Wars moment that you've got to experience because of the industry?
Oh, wow. That's cool. All right. The first one that popped in my head was at the last celebration. Anthony Daniels had just written his memoir of, what is it? I am C-3PO. I forgot the title of it now.
Yeah, I think that's it. I am C-3PO.
Yeah. So, and I believe Random House may have published it or something. So because I was there with them, I got invited after like one of the evenings of celebration to attend like a book, a book premiere party, and he was there. And I wore this. I ran in the Star Wars half marathons where you dress up as the characters, and one of the outfits I did a C-3PO outfit. So I had this like obnoxious C-3PO kind of spandex shirt on, and I wore like a nice blazer and nice pants, but I had like this obnoxious C-3PO shirt on. So, and I wore it thinking, well, maybe this will be a conversation starter or something. So I go to this event, and like he's there, and he's kind of on one side of the room, and I'm on the other, and I'm like, do I talk to him? I don't know, I'm nervous. And like he gets up on stage, and he's doing his spiel, and all of a sudden, like in the middle of his speech, he stops and like locks eyes with me, and he sees my shirt, and he's like, "You sir, come up here." And I'm like, "Oh!" So like, I take off my jacket, and in front of all these like publishers and authors and all this stuff, he gets me up on stage, and he's like, "This is why I write this book," like, and he's going off.
Dude,
on like,
that's so cool.
So I got like, I have a really nice picture with him and have a little chat with him, and it was just, so that was pretty blow away.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, I did share the thing about being able to narrate Force Awakens before the movie came out. That was pretty epic. So
yeah. So was anything, this is off topic, but was anything in the Force Awakens like, I've been trying to grow the channel and stuff. So right now shorts are a big deal. So I've been cranking out like little, 50-second things a day. And so the biggest question I had leaving Force Awakens was, what the heck's going on with this Snoke character? Who is this? Is this, everybody thought it was Plagueis and all that stuff. So when you're reading for this character, did they tell you ahead of time? And I'm only asking this now because we know who he is and I'm not going to get you in trouble, but at the time, did they say, so this guy is this type of character, like, or is it just you read the line?
No, I just, all I got was the book. And like, and I had just as many questions as you can imagine. And I think I also thought it was Plagueis. And I remember like, I was so paranoid about wanting to do the characters that were going to be in the film and like emulate how they would be performed in the film in the book. And since there were no references, like I was trying to be like, can I see some footage? Like, can I go, and, they sent me a couple audio clips of things, but mostly it was like me, like going and finding the trailers and recording the trailers. I remember like for Captain Phasma, there was a talking Captain Phasma action figure. So I went to the toy aisle and was recording the talking action figure to try to get some idea of what Phasma sounded like.
That's really funny.
And so like, I think they said eventually we begged them, and eventually they sent me some stuff for Balatik and Unkar Plutt just so I would know what to do. But most of it was just off the trailers and my best estimation of what it was going to be like. So, wow,
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
I would say the coolest, obviously we're still a much, smaller show and things, but probably one of the coolest things is, I got to meet Ray Park a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
And, he was in Houston the day after my birthday.
Oh.
And so, I got to meet him. Super, super sweet guy. He talked to me for 7 minutes.
Wow.
And he's paid by autograph. So me being the greedy son of a gun, I'd be like, see ya, just trying to rack up the cash.
Yeah.
But we talked for 7 minutes. And so I had a comic book that had Maul on it that he was going to sign. And I said, hey, I had this, I literally bought this here, but I printed some of my toy photography work. Would you sign that instead? And he said, for sure. And I
Wow.
paid for 2 signatures, and he signed like 7 things.
Holy
And
moly.
he loved the art, and he told me the things he liked about every picture. He was like,
That's so cool.
wow, Maul looks ripped in this one. And I was like, that's because you're so cool and ripped, Ray.
Yeah.
And so that was probably the coolest thing, was
Oh, that's awesome.
not that like the podcast itself opened any doors, but it was cool that the photography that I've done in the past, the guy that's Darth Maul thought it was cool.
Yeah.
That was really cool. So I applied for the media badge this year for Celebration. Didn't get in this year, but we're gonna keep going.
Are you guys going then, or no? Or you're not going because you didn't get the media?
No, that was kind of like, because it's in California, and
yeah.
to fly and to stay and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I could foot the bill for those 2 things if we got the badge type of thing.
Yeah.
But I did get asked. It was so dumb because I have a big event that weekend that I was going to ask months ago, like, do you mind if we scooch this if I get to go to Celebration?
Oh, yeah.
And I actually got offered a ticket a couple of days ago, but because it's so close, I can't move the event.
Ah, dang. Oh, well.
So, but someday, definitely going to go. Okay. Let's see. We asked you what your favorite book was. You got to narrate. You kind of already covered that one. Let's see. Is there a book or character? Okay, here we go. Is there a book or character or story you would most like to be the voice of, even if even if there's no book for it yet? Is like, what's your dream Star Wars narration gig?
Oh, wow. I would really love to do like a Yoda centric book, like that's totally like,
oh wow,
with him as the main character. I've done several where he's, there and he's guiding and he's like kind of on the side, but like I would really love to know, kind of like what we're getting with the Obi-Wan series. Like I would love to know what he was doing on Dagobah, what adventure, if he had any adventures there. Was it purely hiding out? That would be like my dream thing, is to be able to maybe fill in that gap, between.
Yeah, because it's interesting, and I want to say it's in A New Hope certain point of view. I can't recall, and I want to say that this one was narrated by Jonathan Davis, but there's one where it's he has 2 huts on Dagobah, and he goes to one during the summer and then one during the winter.
Yes.
And that would be so cool. Just, I could honestly watch 4 or 5 hour-long episodes of him just pulling up mushrooms out of the ground.
Right.
As long as it's Yoda doing stuff. But like,
totally.
It would be interesting because like if you think about it, like Yoda has a very, he's obviously a very strong character, but he has some of that Master Comac in him, where it's like he'd prefer to learn versus like he's not a fighter by nature. Like Mace Windu has a more aggressive personality, for instance.
Yeah.
And so it would be cool to see like him on Dagobah, and how to all these, Dagobah is such a dark side nexus and everything living there is violent and aggressive. How does he bring peace to that area where like there's none of these animals, it doesn't look like they're bothering him, hunting him? Like he's brought his own sense of balance to that ecosystem. That would be cool.
Yeah. No, yeah. So
dang. Okay. Well, now we have to show that we got to pitch to Lucasfilm.
Right.
Okay. Here's a good one. What new characters in the last like 5 or 7 years or so have been your favorite characters?
Okay. Wow. I really like from the Ascendancy books. I thought Hapleaf was a really cool character, and really kind of this really interesting, conniving, snivelly, sneaky guy.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm loving the High Republic stuff. So I love like Stellan and Elzar, and I love Orbelin and Skier was really fun. So like all those guys are like really, really.
Oh man, I'm a Skier
really
fanboy.
Yeah,
I need more Skier in my life.
Me too.
Awesome. Okay, perfect. Okay, dream. Oh, here's a cool one. Dream. I've said that every question. Dream cameo would be in what Disney Plus show? They call you just like John Williams from Rise of Skywalker. Hey, Mark,
Right.
what's your dream cameo for a Disney Plus show? You can give us a show, and what would you want the cameo to be?
Oh man, that's hard. I mean, I have a couple. Like, I would like, I guess at this point, because I would have loved to have been in the Obi-Wan show, but that's come and gone. But like, maybe I mean, it would be so fun to be in the Ahsoka show, and I have this idea of like a character who, because I always wondered, like, how did the Jedi go from there being like tens of thousands of them to by the time Rey's around, like, wait, the Jedi are real? That's a real thing. And I was like thinking like an interesting character might be like a con man who's like swindling people pretending he's a Jedi, but like it's all like sleight of hand stuff. And like, you know, like, so maybe I could like be like a faux Jedi on the Ahsoka show or something. But I also like thought it'd be so cool if like when Thrawn shows up in Ahsoka, if that's where he shows up, we don't know, but he's coming, I imagine. But it'd be so cool if like, I thought it'd be fun if me and Timothy Zahn were like Imperial people, like, you know, like just like, you know, in the pit or something, like doing some computer work, and like had like a just like a quick little yes sir Commander Thrawn or something like that, you know, just some like little off thing that we could like do.
Man,
that would be really fun.
So
that would be a dream. That would be really cool.
Yeah,
I think John Williams's appearance in The Rise of Skywalker is so perfect because it's like,
yes,
he's a cyborg, but it's clearly like it's not even a disguise. Like when
Yeah,
Simon
yeah,
Pegg
yeah.
was Unkar Plutt, or like when Daniel Craig was a stormtrooper, you're leaning over to your friend and you're like, hey, that's actually Daniel Craig.
Yeah.
For John Williams, he turns around, has like a stick in his hand, and he's like, you know, not
Yeah.
literally, but might as well.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. Okay. Here's a fun one. Oh my God. Okay. I swear I'm not going to say that the next time. I promise. I'm so proud of these questions. How has the High Republic and the Nile changed the way you see the Jedi? I know you're a big Jedi fan, and the way they operate in the prequel trilogy.
Yeah. So I have fallen in love with the Nile because, like, at first I was like, really, like space pirates? That's what the Jedi are facing? Like, they would be able to do it like so easily, you know?
Yeah, like Mad Max characters.
Yeah, like it felt like, how are they going to be a challenge for the Jedi? Like, that seems like, you know, but they're such an amazing challenge, and I love I love that they're like this foil for the Jedi, and that they're kind of like selfishness, and we don't want people telling us what to do, and we don't want order, and we just want chaos and anarchy. Like the problems that has presented for the Jedi, and like seeing how they use fear as a weapon, and how you know, again, that gets to the root of so much of the Jedi mythos, is like, you know, the danger of fear and what fear leads to. And, you know, it almost feels like we're witnessing the birth of the dark side in a way. Like, I know that there were Sith before this, and, you know, but like it's almost like we're witnessing the reemergence of like the dark side, and like because of all the fear that's in the galaxy because of the Nile. And just so I think there's such a cool opposite side of the coin.
I never even thought of that.
Like, yeah, it's really neat.
I was always wondering, it's really interesting because I always wondered, and there's so much material out there as far as the adult novels, the young adult novels, the kid, like the elementary or grade school novels, and the comics, and they've done such a bombardment with the High Republic. But I want to say it's in the Trail of Shadows comic line that they really expound on the fact that in their greatest moment of need in the Outer Rim, the Jedi recoup because they're scared of the Nameless.
Yeah.
Those, we call them volcano tigers because the description was so wild. I was like, I don't know, a giant diamond cat.
I love that.
But it's so interesting because it's weird how it looks like humility on one side of the coin, because it's like, well, let's regroup and figure out what's going on. But it's also, it's humility that at its core is like, we don't want to be a part of anything we don't have complete control over.
Yeah,
in a sense, you know what I mean? And it's so interesting that, like, fast forward a few hundred years, and before the High Republic, the peak Jedi that we got to see, we thought was prequel Jedi, like, you know, Force Sprint and the Phantom Menace and things like that. but really they're at their weakest. Like, even though there's more of them, we get to see more crazy stuff. They're at their weakest because they're under this shroud. And you've always got, like, I'm not really a big Mace Windu fan, because you've got Yoda that's like, something's wrong. And I don't know, it feels like Mace is always like, let's do something drastic to fix it. And
yeah.
It's interesting that, like, maybe, obviously, I mean, I don't assume that Sidious is in control of not Sidious, but, like, I don't assume that there's any Sith in control of the Nile. I think they're their own thing. But I do think that you make a really great point that the web of fear that they're spreading across the galaxy that's counterbalancing the light that the Jedi are supposed to bring kind of opens the door for the Shroud of the Dark Side to come into play. Because the Jedi aren't at their peak, because they're it's interesting because Yoda tells Anakin, let go of everything you fear to lose. But their call at the end of The Fallen Star was like, we don't want to lose any more Jedi, so we're all just going to hoard ourselves up in the temple. And we know by the Phantom Menace, like, there's, you know, I said this a couple of weeks ago, but you weren't on the show, so I want to impress you. But I was saying, like, if you think about it, the idea to recall the Jedi to the temple in a time of fear versus just standing our ground and let's face this thing together. Obviously, in the far future, we realize that they have to end up losing the Outer Rim. Like, the Outer Rim's not a part of the Republic by the Phantom Menace, which slavery's still out there, which means Shmi Skywalker can't leave with her son, which means she's attacked by the Tuskens, which means Anakin falls to the dark side in episode 2 and episode 3. So, like, the Jedi recalling unto themselves on Coruscant 250 years prior was, like, had this long-term effect on Vader coming to become Vader, if that makes sense.
Wow. Yeah. That's intense. I hadn't thought about that. That's really cool.
You can tell people at Lucasfilm, you know, a guy. I'm happy to jump on. I'm no Charles Soule, but I'm happy. Okay, cool. So we'll keep moving along. Okay, this is our last official question, and I know that I don't want to keep you for forever. Sure. But obviously, the show is called the Chiss Ascendancy podcast. We're huge Thrawn fans, and although I feel like the name has been niche enough that it's harder to find for the regular average fan, I do like that that's the name of our show, because it shows that, like, we're a fan of all things Star Wars. We're not just like the Light Side podcast or whatever, you know?
Right.
But it says the show's obviously called the Chiss Ascendancy. So what has been your experience personally growing with Grand Admiral Thrawn as a character, and what do you hope to see for the character's future? In a follow-up question to that, or I guess I'll let you answer that one first, because this next question is a follow-up, but it's completely different.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think, like, initially I kind of, you know, saw him as this really worthy adversary for Luke and Han and Leia. And, like, you know, he was such a different flavor of character from, you know, the Emperor or Vader, you know, and it was just, you know, the amount of, like, strategy and calculation and outsmarting them. I thought, like, this is a worthy adversary, you know. But now, like, in a weird way, I don't see him so much as the bad guy anymore. I just see him.
He almost
as, like,
seems like a hero, right?
Yeah. And it's
he's like in service of the greatest good.
Right. And there's this, like, really, there's this nobility to him, and there's this, you know, true meritocracy where he really, like, he really just wants the best idea, and there's a humility about him, and there's so many great, like, leadership principles in him that it's like it's almost, like, hard to see him. Like, it'll be so interesting seeing how the Ahsoka show treats him, because it'll be hard to see him as just a pure bad guy now, you know, like I'll have all these other thoughts in my head, and, like, so it'll be interesting to kind of see him on the opposite side of the, you know, like, because in these most recent books, especially, like, he's the hero, you know, and and kind of, like, there's a lot to admire about him that, you know, the more you get to know him, like, it's like, this guy's really cool, you know. I feel like,
I feel like, other than obviously Timothy Zahn knows him in and out, like, that's his son or whatever, but other than Timothy Zahn and maybe his editor, if you think about how much time you've spent being Thrawn, you probably have a deeper
right.
thought within his own mind than you're probably top 3 in the world, Thrawn people.
Oh, wow.
So,
Yeah.
it's really interesting. I've said this a million times on the show before, but I totally agree, because how do you go from a worthy but completely evil adversary in the Heir to the Empire trilogy, right?
Right.
Like, kept the Nogri in the dark about their slave, servitude type of thing.
Yeah.
And, just his personality was like, didn't believe in the freedom the rebellion was bringing. He literally, or the New Republic literally called them the rebellion, because he was like, I refuse to concede that they're the ruling government now. They're still the rebellion to me. And
Yeah.
but the character in Rebels was also more on the, not as evil, but like, he didn't have time to hear out why Hera Syndulla wanted to free Ryloth. Like that,
Right.
who cares? You're up against us.
Yeah.
So the canon Thrawn trilogy that came out, and then Alliances, you're like, well, hang on, this guy's helping Anakin and Padme. Hang on a second. And then Treason, it's like he says kind of openly, like, I'm here to help the Ascendancy.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
then in the Ascendancy trilogy, he's 100% protagonist.
Right,
so
right.
I'm really like, I wonder if he'll be the bad guy, and then at the end of the Ahsoka show, it's like, maybe there's a worse bad out there, and he's gonna. I don't know what's gonna happen, because I don't think ultimately he cares about our galaxy. He doesn't care about the known galaxy, because he wants to make sure the Chiss are okay.
Right.
So,
and that is
I don't really know.
Yeah, like that's the one through line that's consistent. Is like he'll do whatever it takes to protect his people. So whether that's making sure that the Empire stays in power so that he can manipulate them further down the road or whatever. So like I think that's so that'll be interesting. And like I think sometimes circumstances can change people, and so it'll be interesting to know what's happened to him when he's like in the whales, in the outer regions.
Yeah,
or whatever,
maybe he's
like,
so angry because he's been around Ezra for so long.
Yeah, and like maybe he's like, yeah, exactly.
He's sick of Ezra.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, there it is.
So if they call you tomorrow and say, "Hey, you get to write the fate of what happens to Thrawn long term,"
yeah,
what would you like to see happen to him?
Well, I think now, in light of how we've gotten to know him in the books, I would like to, I think I would like to see him initially try to battle Luke and them, but then eventually like team up with Luke and Ahsoka and try to like battle, whatever, like whether it's the Grisks or like some other thing. Like I'd like to almost see Luke team up with Thrawn, and Thrawn maybe come around and see that the if he really was just manipulating the Empire for the sake of putting himself in the right position to protect the Chiss, then maybe now that the Empire's fallen, when he comes back, maybe he'll go with Luke. But I have a feeling he's going to be the big bad again, so I don't think that'll happen. But I think that's where I would want to see it go now, is like maybe like you're saying, like kind of like an even greater threat coming, and then like him team up with the people that we know to be heroes and kind of help them.
Right.
And that way I think would be cool.
What's so strange to me about where he's at now, if it was just him being pulled out by the Purgil, I think those creatures are called.
Yeah.
If it was just him, I can see a world where he's like, well, I'm ticked. I've been in space with these whales for 4 or 5 years, whatever. But it's interesting that the way that, and Dave Filoni doesn't do anything on accident. Yeah. Like there is not a single thing that he's not like, I've got 10 other things lined up for this. Like
right.
Dave's always got another thing under his sleeve. So, to me, it says a lot that he's with Ezra wherever they are, because Ezra will explain to him the plight of the Jedi, and, how crazy would it be if Thrawn's like, interesting you say that. Like,
right.
Anakin Skywalker is Darth Vader, because he has to know. Like him and Tarkin are one of the only two people
for sure.
He for sure knows.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to see like how that would play out, because I feel like he's a greater good kind of guy. Like he's he's maybe the greater good is lining up with the right side of history to protect the Chiss, you know.
Right. Yeah.
It's interesting. Okay. So the follow-up question to that was, this is the last one, I promise.
Mm-hmm.
The follow-up question to that is he, meaning Thrawn, the most unique character that you've brought to life, seeing as he's represented on both sides of the hero-villain coin?
I think the way you phrase that question, I would say yes. Like, yeah, I mean, yeah, because it's like, and it's like you could see how, like, I got to interview Timothy Zahn somewhat recently about this, and like, I think his take on it is he doesn't see a difference. Like, he really feels like, depending on what circumstance and situation he's in, he's always doing what's best for his people. So sometimes that's going to look heroic, and sometimes that's going to look like maybe like the villain, you know. But it's really always about that motivation of I'm going to, you know, protect the Chiss Ascendancy and do whatever it takes, and like, you know, I'm pulling strings and manipulating, you know, battles and like thinking 12 steps ahead because I'm always doing what is best for my people, and whether that's, you know, it's always kind of this long game that he's playing, you know. So sometimes it's going to look different based on, you know, whose point of view the story is being told from, or what's his circumstance and situation he finds himself in. But he's always kind of this person that will do whatever it takes, you know. And so in that sense, he feels like he's pretty consistent, and so that's really, you know, like Boba Fett is maybe similar in the books, where you start to see in the books, you got in the what are we calling it now? The Legends books about Boba Fett. You start to also see a bit of nobility in him, and there was a code where it's like, you know, in the movies he's just this pure, like, I'm just in it for the money, and I'll, you know, I don't care, and you know, but in the books there you start to see how he had a bit of a, you know, ethics and code, and kind of, you know, was starting to rebuild the Mandalorians and stuff, and so maybe Boba's a close second, but yeah, like I think Thrawn is probably the most interesting, because he could switch sides depending on what story you plop him in, and yet he's somehow still true to himself, you know. So
I think that he's more true to himself than this character, but you get a lot of that feeling from Kylo Ren too, where he's like, I guess I got to go dark to figure things out.
Right.
Or like a Jason Solo, like you did the Legacy of the Force books. Like Darth Caedus was like, Lumaya was telling him like, okay, one more sacrifice and you'll be able to save the galaxy. And he's like, okay, kill my aunt. Like,
right.
It was just, you know, really, really interesting that but I agree. I think Boba Fett's prime for me as a Boba Fett fan, is because Thrawn and Boba Fett are my two favorite characters. So the fact that you said that they're neck and neck for you was just like that Star Wars moment for me. But Legacy of the Force Boba, that's like, maybe we'll do the right thing this time. I'll teach you, you know, but he's also still got that hard edge to him where he's like, I'll teach you, Jaina, to kill your brother who killed my daughter. Absolutely. 100%. No problem.
Right.
Like, he's still getting his too.
Totally.
Very cool. Okay. So, this would be foolish of us. So that's our last question. But I would love to, you probably get this all the time, so it's probably like another day in the park for you, but I would love to hear, if you wouldn't mind, I don't know how pressed for time you are, but I would love to hear you do a few key impressions that are some of our favorites. Would you mind?
Sure. Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
Okay. So you've done this one for us before because we're the Chiss Ascendancy podcast, but, Samuel, could you give us a prompt for something fun for Thrawn to say?
You can't put me on the spot like that, man. I don't know. Mark, you're the professional. You know, you're sure you have something fun in your back pocket.
Let's see.
I got one for you.
Yeah.
I'm going to make this my daggum. This is going to be my text thing from now. I'm going to strip it and make this my text tone. In Thrawn's voice, could you tell us that Bo-Katan's not a real Mandalorian?
Okay.
These foolish people. Bo-Katan is not a real Mandalorian. How dare she claim that title? Perhaps she needs to face me in battle. I will take the dark saber from her, and I will rule Mandalore.
Chills, straight chills. I did hear you do one before where you I can't remember what podcast it was, but you did Thrawn ordering a hamburger.
Oh yeah,
and that
yeah.
one was really, you're like, extra cheese. That was funny. Okay. Sammy, you did Han Solo earlier, so I guess we can pass on that one because
Oh yeah,
you did such a great job earlier.
Impression. Yeah, that's the one we want to go with.
Okay, we did have a question about like characters like Jabba or characters like that need a little extra
Like modulation.
Modulation in editing. What do you go with for characters like that? Do you just do like the gruffiest voice you can do and they add stuff to it?
Yeah. I'll do the best thing that I can do, and then they can tweak it. But like,
It's wabashi do so bacha solo. Itu wabachi tomba Chiss Ascendancy podcast.
and then they might put a little gravel on it. So
That's pretty fantastic.
Still really good.
Still really good. Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. As soon as you're like, hey, this is really annoying, guys, let us know. We could do this without the podcast all night. Okay. So you didn't read this one, but one of my favorite characters, this is like one of the characters that they're probably never going to put on screen, but I would love to see on screen is Jackson.
Oh, yeah.
And so I don't think you read that book. I think that was somebody else.
It was Sean Kennan, yeah.
Yeah. But would you ever consider doing a voiceover for Jackson if, like, for instance, with Solo, Ray Park did the stand-in, but Sam Witwer did the voice?
Yeah.
Since Jackson would have to be such a heavily CGI or puppet type character,
right?
If they said, "Hey, we need you to do Jackson for Mandalorian season 4," would you do it?
Oh, 100%. I would be the water boy on Mandalorian if they wanted me to.
Did you
would you
did you what do you think that they do with some other characters where they're like, here's kind of what you're looking for? Do you think that Jackson was, because he is inspired by Bugs Bunny, that's why Sean read him that way?
I probably, yeah. Like I haven't done much research on Jackson, so I don't know, but that I would imagine that's probably what they were going for.
Okay, super cool. Okay, here's one that's really interesting, and I'll let Samuel read the last one after this because this is his personal request. But seeing, oh my gosh, what is the guy's? I'm having a brain fart. The guy that does the voices for all the clones.
D. Baker Bradley.
Oh, D. Bradley Baker. Yeah.
Yeah, D. Bradley Baker. Seeing him go through the characters of the Bad Batch. If you ever had to do a novelization for the Bad Batch, do you think you could get through all those characters talking to each other pretty easily?
I mean, I wouldn't say easily. I would listen to a lot of him, but yeah, he was masterful at that. I loved him, hearing him describe what he was thinking when he's placing them different, and he's so great at everything he does. So yeah.
Do you have a favorite member of the Bad Batch?
Oh, is it the big guy's Wrecker, right?
Mm-hmm.
I like Wrecker a lot. Yeah, he's my favorite. Yeah, he makes me laugh out loud.
Do you ever catch yourself doing a Wrecker at home? And if so, could we hear some?
Pick up your socks. We gotta get this house clean before your mother gets home.
Oh my gosh, fantastic. Okay, we'll do one more. This is one of Samuel's bread and butter characters. Not that it's a cool character or anything, but this is something that I was making a list and he wrote this one down. So what do we got, Samuel?
Yeah, a staple character for me that you've done that's just, it sticks in your brain is Arinda Price's mom. The way that you had her, and it was in the Thrawn book, and I don't care for that storyline as much as I care about Thrawn. So when I re-listen, I'll just stick to Thrawn.
Right.
In that audiobook, and it's just one of those things, like I only have "Hey Kid" for Han. For Arinda Price's mom, I just have Arinda, and you just have that kind of voice, and it always just stuck with me.
Arinda. I'd have to re-listen to my reference for it, but yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, perfect. Well, Man, this has been magical. This is Christmas morning
good.
for me. So, thank you so much. Is there any plugs or social media or anything that you would like to put out there so people can follow you and keep track of what you're doing?
Yeah, sure. I'm Captain Ehud on Twitter and Instagram, and then I'm just my name, Marc Thompson, MARC, on Facebook. And I'm actually I am going to Star Wars Celebration. So if people wanted to say hi or get something signed, I'll be at the Penguin Random House booth, audio, and I think we're going to be on some panels and stuff like that. So we're still finalizing the schedule, but
very awesome. Well, man, you have been a amazing guest. You answered a zillion questions and did impressions I did not warn you about. So thank you so much. And you guys, if you are a fan of anything Star Wars, you have to check out the Star Wars audiobooks. It's literally like listening to melting ice cream. It's so delicious and just so fun. Heir to the Empire, if you want to listen, it's so cool because they're re-releasing these as the Essentials collection. So if you want more Thrawn, if you want to catch up on Thrawn before Ahsoka comes out, obviously we don't know for sure, but it really feels like that's what it's leading up to, is Thrawn showing up in Ahsoka. And so if you want to catch up on Thrawn, you can hear Mr. Marc Thompson do Thrawn in the old, gravelly, deeper, cat-like voice, and the new sexy saxophone player voice that we get from Lars Mikkelsen on Rebels. So he does an amazing job at both. Marc, thank you so much for being on. You've been a real treat.
Thanks, Josiah. It was really fun. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So we will catch you guys next time on the Chiss Ascendancy, and the Force will be with you always. And don't forget.
And remember, the only family you have here is me.
Awesome.
Nice.
Thank you guys so much.